Tonight, Israel and Hamas exchange the bodies of the dead as the first funerals are held. 2 men were the first to be buried in Israel. Hamas now says it has handed over all the remains it has been able to recover. After reports of executions and violent clashes between armed groups, America's top military general calls on Hamas to disarm without delay. Coming up, a former Israeli Prime Minister tells me an Arab-led security force is needed within weeks to avoid a descent into chaos. Plus, the China spy row, Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he will publish the government's evidence after accusations of a cover-up. Firepower is on the way. Pete Hegseth's promise to Ukraine. As speculation grows, the US will send Tomahawk missiles to Kyiv. And how a banned song calling for Vladimir Putin to be overthrown is becoming the soundtrack for Russia's protest movement. That's all coming up on The World with me, Mark Austin. Good evening from Jerusalem, where in the past hour the armed wing of Hamas has confirmed that it has now handed over all hostages and bodies that the group has been able to recover. 2 more bodies were released tonight. They'll be taken to the National Institute of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv to be formally identified before burial. 2 men, one killed in captivity, the other killed on that October morning 2 years ago, were laid to rest by their families today. And in Gaza, aid has now started to roll across the border, though charities are warning that their efforts are being hampered by the violent clashes between armed groups. In a moment, I'll bring you my conversation with former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. He told me that immediate security intervention is necessary to prevent Hamas from filling the power vacuum in the territory. We'll begin, though, with this report from our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons.
This was a funeral for Guy Ilous, but it was also a cry from the soul of a nation, from people who didn't know Guy, but who see him and his story of captivity as a symbol of Israel's pain.
We are family, but I don't know him, and I know him, but he doesn't know me, okay? So this is, in Hebrew we said, Kol Israel arevim ze laze. We are all responsible to each other. This is my duty.
Guy Ilous's coffin was transported in an unassuming panel van. He was a quiet man whose death came in captivity in the wake of the violence of October the 7th. Mourners walked behind.
I'm very happy to see the live hostages back, but we cannot forget the dead ones who are left behind. And this is the minimum that we can say for them, that we are sorry that we couldn't bring them back here alive.
This procession and the sight of Guy Ilous's coffin in the back of the vehicle are evidence that the ceasefire is bearing fruit. His body has been returned. But all this emotion is also proof of something else, the deep trauma felt across Israeli society. Hamas returned the bodies of 3 hostages on Tuesday night and has now handed over 2 more coffins, but it claims it can't recover any more bodies without the use of specialist equipment. In Gaza too, there is a focus on the dead. Here, 45 bodies of Palestinian prisoners have been returned by Israel. That's 90 bodies sent back to Gaza in 2 days, all identified by a number, but not a name. Outside, as the dead arrive, the living ask questions. This woman is looking for her missing husband.
Mentally, we're exhausted. I don't even know how to think anymore. Am I still married or have I lost my husband? It feels like I'm trapped in between. It's so hard. It's as if I've already seen him die and buried in my mind. The thought is unbearable, not knowing if he's dead, imprisoned or alive somewhere.
Aid is getting into Gaza, even though the Rafah crossing remains closed. Convoys of trucks that are making shuttle trips in and out. It's not enough, but our team on the ground heard more optimism.
Thank God the prices are suitable today. They are much better than they were. They've dropped in the markets. You don't find everything you need in the shops, really, but it's much better than before. The famine is gone, at least partly. So that's good. Hope this carries on and the aid continues to flow.
But reality trumps optimism. This is what it's like to drive through the north of Gaza City. A catastrophic landscape of dust and rubble. The ceasefire is holding, but the suffering is boundless.
And Adam joins me now, so 2 more bodies handed over this evening, and now Hamas saying they can't locate any others, or at least without
Specialist equipment. Yeah, exactly. So far the Red Cross have picked up 2 coffins from Hamas. We can't take it as read that those are hostages, because yesterday of the 4 they handed over, 1 turned out not to be a hostage. But if it is the case, that'll take the total to 9 that have been handed over, out of a total of 28. So in other words, Hamas's subsequent statement that they can't recover any more bodies without specialist equipment, without more time. They say they're working hard to what they say is close this file. That would leave 19 bodies that are either unrecovered or potentially unrecoverable in the wasteland of Gaza, a land where they said there's 2 million lorry loads of rubble around Gaza. I mean, it is an extraordinarily apocalyptic scene, as we know. So, and there is a range of opinion, Mark, which is there are some here in Israel who say this is a stalling tactic, that Hamas knows exactly where these bodies are, that they're lying, they can't be trusted. And others who say, well, of course, some of these bodies have gone missing. Look at what has happened to Gaza. It is completely feasible. What we do know is that there will be those within Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet who will be saying, this is Hamas trying to pull the wool over your eyes. You will need to take a strong line against them, and that will just inflame the rhetoric.
And increasing calls for Hamas to disarm sooner rather than later, against that background of what seems to be growing violence in Gaza.
Yeah, we are seeing images, quite disturbing images, some of them of executions being taking place in Gaza. I saw one today of 5 or 6 people being summarily shot in the back of the head. And this is being used as leverage against Hamas to try to follow the instructions of Donald Trump's plan to disarm. And this evening we've been given this statement by the head of CENTCOM, Admiral Brad Cooper. Let me read this out. He says, "We strongly urge Hamas to immediately suspend violence and shooting at innocent Palestinian civilians in Gaza, in both Hamas-held parts of Gaza, those secured by the IDF behind the yellow line." He says this is a historic opportunity for peace. Hamas should seize it by fully standing down, strictly adhering to President Trump's 20-point peace plan and disarming without delay. We have conveyed our concerns to the mediators who agreed to work with us to enforce the peace and protect innocent Gaza civilians. We remain highly optimistic for the future of peace in the region. Some of the background...
So, I mean, they must have expected something like this.
Of course, because the second phase is so vague, it's so unconstructed. And expressions like disarmament are themselves so open to question. Is this offensive and defensive weapons? Is it light or heavy weapons? Hamas is already asking these questions. This is part of the posturing. It's part of trying to keep up the pressure. Trump himself has said today that if he gives the word, quote, the war will resume. Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, has said that he is briefing the military to come up with a plan for the complete destruction of Hamas. So this is all an attempt to put pressure on Hamas, and I'm absolutely sure that their failure to return not even half of the deceased hostages will be used as further leverage.
OK, Adam, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, Israel's former Prime Minister and head of the army, Ehud Barak, told me the security force planned or being planned for Gaza must be on the ground within a few weeks, not months. He said it was essential for Hamas to hand over its weapons. When we sat down in Tel Aviv today, he also said Benjamin Netanyahu was not the man to guide Israel to peace under Donald Trump's plan.
I wonder whether he can do it. He's basically the one who brought us this disaster. He was the one who failed on the 7th of October when you interviewed me 2 years ago, and he clearly failed all along the way afterward. So basically, in his own words, he said, to expect that the one who failed and broke something will be the one who will fix it is like thinking that the captain of the Titanic, if he would have survived, should get the command of the new ship.
So someone else would be better to make the peace?
For sure. That's my view. Of course, it will be decided in an election. We hope it will be a free and fair election. Some suspect that that's not the case.
Just, you don't think it will be a free and fair election?
I cannot predict, but there are strong suspicion in Israel that Netanyahu is so desperate. He's for the last 9 months at least, he doubled down on the gamble every time that he faced certain challenge. He doesn't act upon the interests of Israel, but upon his personal interest to stay in power. So you cannot predict it, but people tend to believe that if the only way for him will be, and he find himself capable of distorting the election, he will do it.
You told me in an interview 1 year ago that Israel's military objectives in Gaza had been achieved, that effectively they've gone as far as possible. Has the last year, in your view, been a waste of lives?
Yeah, I think that since March, I believe, when he started his new phase in Gaza, was, we call it war of deception. Reality is that Hamas was defeated as a military organization more than a year ago. It still have groups of guerrilla terrorists with light weapons trying to kill Israel. That can continue for years. And basically, following this defeat of Hamas, we succeeded in inflicting a major blow on Hezbollah. Then, seizing an opportunity, we paralyzed the military capability of Syria, and it paved the way to successful attack on Iran. And that was the ideal time to announce victory, bring back the hostages, open this new chapter.
What has the fighting over the last few months then, the war over the last few months, do you think, what has it done to Israel's international reputation?
It's killed our positioning in the world. It's huge damage. It will take probably a generation to correct it. In fact, we found ourselves in a situation where I say Sinwar, he's now sitting down there in the hell, looking upward through the flames.
This is the Hamas leader.
Hamas leader, he sees something he could not believe. In his mind, Netanyahu, with his own hands on the responsibility of Israel, turned Hamas military defeat a year ago into an unprecedented diplomatic and political success. They brought back the Palestinian issue, not through negotiation in Israel, but to be imposed upon Israel, bypassing the negotiation. That's his best dream and our worst.
Now, the future, there's a vacuum in Gaza, a vacuum of power in Gaza. Does an international force need to get into Gaza now quickly?
Yeah, I think that international force, maybe not international, inter-Arab/Muslim force should be there in few weeks, not several months. If it takes several months, Hamas will have a second thought on his readiness to give its arms, offensive arms, at least to the newly built security force. Because the inter-Arab force should enter immediately. No chance that Hamas will dare to shoot at Egyptians who hold literally the oxygen pipe to the strip. They will not dare to shoot at Emiratis who had the purse for the reconstruction. There will be tens of billions along a decade probably. They won't dare to do it. Israel should put only two conditions. Number one, not a single member of the military wing of Hamas can participate in any organ of the new entity. Number two, the final withdrawal to the border will be only once the pre-agreed security milestones are met. That's it's painful but simple, and the only precondition for its success, determination of Trump. Trump might lose his attention to this issue. There is anything from Ukraine to China and the economic system and problems at home. We need the same Trump determined to keep moving toward peace.
Can this Trump framework, do you think it can lead to a solution? And would that solution have to be a two-state solution? Do you think that can emerge?
It will take time. It cannot happen overnight, but the zeitgeist, the atmosphere in the world and the pressure on both sides to find a solution is created in front of our eyes even the last week. Of course, in the long term, two-state solution is the only sustainable one. Any other solution will break, but it will take time. No leader can now propose to Israel go immediately to two-state solution. You need rightness on both sides, and we should see not just Israeli leader emerging, but also Palestinian leader emerging, and hopefully with a zeitgeist that gives a tailwind to sincere negotiation, not just imposing upon Israel a Palestinian state.
Ehud Barak, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The former Prime Minister and head of the army, Ehud Barak, talking to me there. My next guest is a Pulitzer Prize-winning Palestinian poet who was forced to leave northern Gaza after the war began. Mossab Abu Toha was then detained and beaten by Israeli soldiers as his family tried to leave, before being released days later. Since then, more than 100 of his relatives have been killed. He now lives in New York, where he chronicles the war from afar, and Mossab joins me now. Thank you very much for being with us. And so you and your family managed to get out in December 2023. I guess my first question is, how difficult has it been to be so far from the place where so many of your family and your friends have been killed?
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. In fact, I am physically very far from Gaza, but my heart and mind and my thoughts and my shadows in the streets that I walked in Gaza are still there. The bodies of my loved ones are still buried under the rubble in the Gaza Strip. On September 25th this year, just 3 weeks ago, a second cousin of mine, Mohammed Amin Abu Toha, was killed in an airstrike with his wife and their 4 children. The bodies of their 4 children remained under the rubble until yesterday. Yesterday, the family managed to retrieve the body of one child, half of the upper half of another child missing 2 hands, and the other half of another child. One child, Yusuf Abu Toha, 2 years old, is still buried under the rubble until today. And I don't, unfortunately, Mark, I don't hear anyone raising these stories of the hundreds of families who have been buried under the rubble and disappeared forever. And one thing, Mark, I didn't, as a Palestinian, I can't believe that I'm watching and I'm hearing your previous guests talking about the Israeli concerns for security while expressing not a single concern about the Palestinian people's security and pain and suffering over not the past 2 years, but the decades ago. I didn't see any international journalist. Mark, you are in Jerusalem, 70 kilometers away from the Gaza Strip. I didn't see any international journalist following the funerals of the Palestinian people who were killed or who, after the ceasefire, whose bodies were retrieved from under the rubble. I didn't see anyone following the funerals and covering them.
But sadly, we can't get into Gaza. I mean, the Israeli government won't let us go into Gaza. Have we got the chance to go into Gaza? I've been into Gaza many times. I've been into Gaza 2008, 2009, 2013. We can't get in. But I think what we do rely on are very brave, courageous Palestinian journalists who are sending out material day in, day out at risk to themselves, and more than 200 have died.
They were killed, in fact. Mark, there are the hundreds of so many Palestinian people who were abducted by Israel, as you know. Just yesterday you covered this, the bodies of 45 Palestinian people. I mean, just CNN used the words deceased as if they just died in the street and they were taken. Some of these bodies were run over by tanks. And I mean, in the first place, why were these people killed? This is one question. The other question, why were their bodies taken by Israel? And there is what we know, Mark, as the symmetry of numbers. There are some people whose bodies have been detained by Israel for decades, Mark, since before the Oslo Accords in 1993. I don't hear these questions. I wish I could hear them all the time. The body of Dr.
Let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this. Do you think President Trump has the interests of the Palestinian people at heart in this framework for peace that everybody is now talking about, and which, to be fair, has brought about a ceasefire and the release of hostages and prisoners? Do you think he has the interests of the Palestinian people at heart?
I mean, he does have the power, but I don't believe that he has any interest, because if he really did have an interest, he would have ordered Israel to completely stop the fire. By the way, you said ceasefire. Well, yesterday Israel killed 7 people in Khan Yunis and in Shuja'iyya neighborhood in Gaza City. Today Israel abducted 9 people in Rafah. So I don't understand. I mean, it's true that the bombs stopped falling on people, on our families. It's true, but still the ceasefire is not a real ceasefire. If there is a ceasefire, then you should be able to go to Gaza and follow the funerals of the Palestinian people whose bodies are being retrieved, just like the bodies of my cousins. And the Rafah border crossing, why hasn't it been opened? So if he really had an interest, then unconditionally, immediately open the border crossing.
I have colleagues who would want to go and do it.
I know.
We have many colleagues who would want to go and do it.
I watch your interviews, and I
just a final point. Just a quick final point, if you could, Mahab. How concerned are you by what is happening now with the remnants of Hamas? As the reports are coming out that there are these, there's violence, there's fighting, there's many deaths with other rival gangs. How concerned are you about that going on in Gaza right now?
I think this is very unfortunate. This is what I want to see as a Palestinian. I don't wish to see Hamas or any other Palestinian faction killing other people, even if they were collaborators. I mean, this is my personal opinion. I don't like to see Hamas or any person shooting someone in the street in front of other people. I see this as an unacceptable thing. But Mark, one important thing. Israel is very interested in seeing Hamas doing this. Israel has made sure that there is no order in Gaza. When the Hamas police in Gaza tried to organize the aid trucks, they were killing them. Israel destroyed all the infrastructure in Gaza, whether it's civilian, whether it's educational, anything. So Israel made chaos in Gaza. And unfortunately, this is the result of Israel's destruction of all things. So there is no order in Gaza because Israel has created this hell.
Yeah, let me just finish with this, because I was reading your New Yorker article about you leaving Gaza. And at one point you wrote this: "It's true that there are many things to criticize Palestinians for. We're divided, we suffer from corruption, many of our leaders do not represent us, some people are violent, but in the end we Palestinians share at least one thing with Israelis. We must have our own country or live together in one country in which Palestinians have full and equal rights." My last question is, do you think that will happen in the near future or at all in the future?
Mark, it's important to remind everyone that I wrote this article in December 2023, so about 2 years ago. And in fact, this is what I want to live. I want to live in peace, but in freedom and dignity, equality for everyone. I mean, I don't care whether it's Israelis, Americans. I treat everyone as equal. But when these people, the Israelis, most of them, are okay with the genocide that have been unfolding again on Gaza. I mean, Mark, I'm not talking about Palestine. I'm talking about myself. I am the story. My father-in-law was killed in an airstrike in August 2 months ago while he was trying to get aid from the Zakim aid crossing. So I really wish to live in peace, but this peace should be shared by everyone. This feeling of equality, of peace, of dignity should be shared. I don't see this, in the Israeli streets. And unfortunately, I see the media portraying Palestinians as if they are being killed by someone. They don't name the aggressor. So these people, the 45 people, they are not deceased Palestinians. Where is the word Israel? Who killed these people? Whose tanks ran over these bodies? I wish to see peace,
Moab, we're going to
not
have to
only
leave it.
in the Holy Land, but also by the media. I wish they could they named the aggressor, the killer. This is where peace starts from, not only Palestinian
Okay.
Israelis,
Moab,
but
thank
also
you very
the
much.
media could help us with that.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, you're watching The World live from Jerusalem. Still to come, we'll hear from Donald Trump on the challenge of bringing back all of the hostages.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Welcome back to Jerusalem. And in the last few moments, Donald Trump has been speaking in the White House. He spoke about the state of the Gaza ceasefire. Let's have a listen.
We have the living hostages all back. They returned some more today. It's a gruesome process. I almost hate to talk about it. But they're digging. They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies. Then they have to separate the bodies. You wouldn't believe this. And some of those bodies have been in there a long time. and some of them are under rubble. They have to remove rubble, but there are graves, and some are in tunnels that died in tunnels that are way down under the earth, and the tunnels are like 3 feet. Can you believe it? 3 feet high. They lived like this for a long period of time. It's a horrible atrocity. At the same time, we, meaning Israel, but I knew everything they were doing pretty much. I knew most of the things they were doing, but they've killed probably 70,000 of these people, Hamas. And I said, it's time now. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see what happens. Your next question is going to be the weapons. We want the weapons to be given up, sacrificed, and they've agreed to do it. Now they have to do it. And if they don't do it, we'll do it.
That's President Trump speaking at the White House in the last few moments. Well, we've been reporting about the anger here over the time it's taken Hamas to return the bodies of hostages which remain in Gaza. One of them is Tal Haimi, who was head of the rapid response security team at a kibbutz which was targeted by Hamas on October the 7th. He was killed during the fighting and his body was taken across the border into Gaza. Earlier this evening, I spoke with his widow, Ella, who said the uncertainty was the hardest part.
Yeah, I feel like in a reality show, but the reality is my life and my kids' life. And every morning they're asking me, did their father come back? And I'm telling them, no, I'm sorry, not yet, maybe tomorrow. And it's so hard for them. We all of us, we want him to back, but when he will return, we're gonna have a funeral, and it's very hard also. So both of the scenarios are very bad for us and sad.
And I was reading that you'd had a baby since this awful event, so I'm still a baby clearly, but how are your other children, 3 other children? How are they taking all this?
Yeah, on October the 7th, I was in the 2nd month of my pregnancy. And Lotan, my baby, he was born 7 months after October. And my kids are heroes, really. One of them told me yesterday, he said, oh, Mommy, you know, I'm so happy for other families, but I'm so sad for myself. And this is the whole story. We hold in one hand happiness about those who came back alive, and in the other end, we are very sad because we know our end is different.
Is your great fear that Hamas will say that they cannot find any more bodies?
Yes, I am, because we cannot forget that Hamas is a terror organization. And we've been very hard 2 years, especially October the 7th. We know how brutally and violence this organization is. And I'm afraid, but I know from the Israeli Authority, from the IDF, that they have the tools to make this agreement come true. And this is what should happen now. And I trust the IDF, and I hope that the Israeli government do what she has to do to bring all of them back.
Do you think Hamas is making every effort to find these bodies and get these bodies out, or not?
No, I don't think he's doing a provocacy, but I don't think he's do everything he can. It's somewhere in the middle. He doesn't have the passion that he has to take all the 20s alive. Now it's a little bit hard for him because he needs to work hard to take someone you don't know exactly where he is, in some kind of tunnel or down the ground. It's hard, yeah.
And he died, as I was saying, trying to defend the kibbutz on October the 7th, taken into Gaza. Just describe your husband to us.
Yeah, Tal was a mechanical engineering. He worked in a factory as a manager. And he was volunteer in the first response team. He was the commander. It's mean that in some emergency situation, he needs to protect the kibbutz. There were some kind of 10 or 11 teammates. And also that morning, we never thought about 100 terrorists in the kibbutz. The worst case scenario was about 2 or 3 terrorists. But it was very surprising. And he went out to protect us. He knew I'm alone with the kids. He knew I'm in the second month of the pregnancy. He knew that the door of the safe room is broken. And after all of that, he went out to protect us, to protect the family, to protect the community and the kibbutz and the country. Because this is Tal.
Do you accept that he may never be found?
I know that all the opportunities are on the table, and I told to the kids that he may not found. I know, but I will not give up. Not now. It's too early for me to give up. There are many things that can be done until we will give up.
Do you think the IDF and the Israeli government are doing everything they possibly can to get Tal out?
Yeah. I have contact daily with we have an officer, and I'm talking with the people from the IDF that I trust them. Yes, absolutely, they are doing everything they can. Yes, and I know that it's gonna be maybe long and hard, but yes, they are doing everything they can, and I trust them.
The widow waiting for her husband's body to come home. This is The World, live from Jerusalem. Next up, stark warning to world leaders about global warming and the extreme weather events that will follow.
we've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Now, the UK is being warned it needs to prepare for 2 degrees of warming globally. That is higher than the goal set out under the landmark 2015 Paris Agreement, when countries agreed to try to limit warming to well below 2 degrees, ideally 1.5 degrees. Sky's climate reporter Victoria Seabrook joins me now. Good evening, Victoria. And this is one of the starkest warnings from the Climate Change Committee.
Yes, exactly. And when we talk about the difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees, it might not sound like much, but actually the difference is pretty massive. And I'll come on to that in a minute. But just to put this all into context, as you said, under the landmark Paris Agreement that was signed in 2015, governments agreed to try to limit warming to 1.5 degrees, ideally, and that became the kind of symbolic target. And that was just 10 years ago. And 10 years later, we're already at least 1.3 degrees of warming. And so with that, warnings that we may have blown our chances of 1.5 have been growing louder, but no one really wants to call it until it's happened because they're afraid that that will sort of make people think, what's the point, and give up trying. And obviously, even if things go over 1.5 degrees, everything after that still has a greater and greater impact. So the UK government's top climate advisors today, they said it really in as tacit acknowledgement as you can get without actually saying it out loud, that 2 degrees is what we should be aiming for. And as I said, it might not sound like that big a difference, but bear in mind, these are global average temperatures, and it refers to how much the world has warmed on average since pre-industrial time. So before we started burning fossil fuels at scale, pretty much. And already with the warming that we've seen so far, the impacts around the world have been massive. So just in the last few years, of course, there's been devastating wildfires in LA. And however wildfires are started, whether by people or weather or anything else, climate change affects the conditions that can make them very intense by making it hotter and drier. And those wildfires in LA, the bill is thought to be at least $135 billion US. There's also been terrible flooding in Pakistan repeatedly in monsoon season. This year saw 2 million people evacuated. And then more intense hurricanes in the Caribbean and North America as well. And all of this obviously has knock-on impacts on our food systems, on people leaving their homes and their countries and migrating. And so that's why we've had this warning today to governments. And this stuff is hard and it's complicated, but this is in the hopes that people will start thinking about this more seriously.
Right, and interesting timing, just weeks before the next COP summit.
Yes, exactly, the annual UN climate conference. Last year it was in Azerbaijan, Baku, the capital. In a couple of weeks, world leaders will be meeting in Brazil, in Belém, in the Amazon. And this conference happens every year. That was what happened in Paris when they got this agreement. And given the kind of warning that we've had today, people do tend to ask, what have they achieved? They meet every year, and yet we still have these impacts going up, things getting worse. The people who really defend the process, what they say is that, yes, warming is still going up, emissions, carbon dioxide, and so on. But before the Paris Agreement, the world was on course for 4 to 5 degrees of warming. Now it's more like 2.5. So still a lot, but better than it was, much better than it was. That's what they say. And the politics around this globally is really interesting at the moment. Of course, you've got the US President Donald Trump pulling out of the whole process, the EU also wavering a bit on its commitment, and then you've got China that's already sort of won the battle for the energy and the technology, the green tech of the future, making all of the solar panels and extracting all the critical minerals and so on. So it will be interesting to see how all of this plays out at COP30 next month.
OK, thank you very much indeed. This is The World, live from Jerusalem this evening. Next up, could long-range missiles soon be on the way to Ukraine? We'll have more on that next.
First Minister, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you.
How are you feeling? Looking forward to getting into the parliamentary chamber.
Are you any further forward to making a decision?
No, it's an important day today.
All of the claims were in line with my parliamentary duties, so I'm making that clear to you, Conor.
He was a Scot through and through.
He was a very good politician.
Alex Salmond was controversial, he was a disruptor, but above all, he was respected.
Will you resign if you lose this week?
Again, I'm not planning to, of course, lose the vote of no confidence. I'm planning to win that vote of no confidence.
His face said it all.
My intention to stand down as party leader.
This is now a storm with deadly consequences. How are they feeling?
They're a bit scared at the minute.
We've been told to evacuate.
How are you feeling?
Devastated.
Hundreds of homes were wiped out by flooding. I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent.
It was probably the darkest time in my life.
Scott is 5 years sober after a cocaine addiction left him close to death.
Scotland has a shameful record, worse than England, the worst in Europe. So why not just say you failed? Because then you might get more respect from families who've lost loved ones.
This is where one of the UK's most prolific rapists thought he'd got away with murder.
Sky News can reveal that former sex workers had told police he was sexually violent.
My Emma.
Free wherever you get your news.
It's over, isn't it?
The Americans say he is Rossi, a fraudster.
This has been one of the most bizarre cases ever heard in a courtroom in this country.
A dangerous murderer.
Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Andrew Innes after this?
She said she can forgive him, but as long as he's behind bars.
By doing the right thing, it's destroyed your life.
They terrorised me, they intimidated me.
I'm so grateful.
Sky News, the full story first.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
And just some breaking news to bring you, and the government has now published 3 key witness statements in the China spying case. Downing Street has been under considerable pressure over its handling of the case that saw a former parliamentary researcher and a teacher charged with passing politically sensitive information to China, allegations they both deny. But there is the statement, and there are 3 such statements, I understand, which our political correspondent Tamara Cohen is wading through as we speak, and the The statements were provided by the Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Collins, provided them to prosecutors. The Prime Minister said he intended to publish in full, been under pressure from the Conservatives. Lib Dems had called for the documents to be released, and Tory leader Kemi Badenoch actually accused the government of a cover-up. And just the background, the Crown Prosecution Service unexpectedly dropped charges against Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry last month, and that is what prompted all the criticism from, indeed, from some ministers and MPs, and both men deny the allegations, as I said. But hopefully we will bring you more on what those statements actually say, and whether it really changes anything in a few minutes' time. Now, today, over 50 NATO defence ministers met in Brussels, with nations pledging further spending for Ukraine to assist in their defence against Russia. Today's meeting was critical as it comes ahead of Friday's next sit-down between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. UK Defence Secretary John Healey said there was a strong commitment to support Ukraine.
Our mission remains as strong and as clear as ever. First, to ensure that Ukraine's armed forces have what they need to fight. Second, to work to secure peace for tomorrow. And third, to stand ready to step up still further. But until peace comes, Ukrainians, both military and civilians alike, continue to fight with huge courage. So our determination must match their defiance.
John Healey there. Well, today the UK introduced sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies, but frustratingly for Ukraine, there was no formal announcement that NATO will supply them long-range Tomahawk missiles. There's a simple reason why they want them. Ukraine's existing US-made army missile system has a limited range of around 200 miles. The army has been firing these into Russian-held territory inside the country. Tomahawk missiles have a much longer reach, up to 1,500 miles, and can penetrate much deeper into Russia's western flank. They could target logistics hubs, depots, airfields and command centres that are currently out of reach. Our Europe correspondent Alistair Bunkle was in Brussels and sent us this update.
This was one of those meetings where you assume what was discussed behind the scenes was more significant, more important, more valuable than what was announced publicly, because there weren't really any announcements. It was a gathering of defence ministers focused really on two things: the defence of Europe, but also continued support for Ukraine, with the common factor there being Russia, of course. It was a chance for some countries to reiterate what they have been doing to help Ukraine, what they are doing to try and protect Europe against hybrid attacks from Russia. The UK, for example, announced that it had already sent 85,000 drones to Ukraine this year and hopes to send around 100,000 before the year is out. But really, the big announcement that people, I suppose, were hoping for but probably not expecting was the potential that the United States are going to send long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine for their defence. That was not officially confirmed here today, despite our best efforts to ask various defence ministers and the NATO Secretary General and the US Defence Secretary, the Secretary of War, as he likes to be known now, Pete Hegseth, pretty much ignored the media for much of the day, instead giving a statement early morning, just after he arrived, alongside the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and having this to say about America's support for Ukraine.
One part of that, of course, is Pearl, is the initiative where European countries buy U.S. weapons transferred to NATO for the fight in Ukraine to bring peace to that conflict. And if there's anything we've learned under President Trump, is the active application of peace through strength. You get peace when you are strong, not when you use strong words or wag your finger. You get it when you have strong and real capabilities that adversaries respect.
So no official confirmation that the United States is going to provide Tomahawk long-range missiles to Ukraine yet. I think that will come later in the week when President Zelensky, the Ukraine president, is in Washington at the White House again to meet President Trump. It feels like a big announcement, the sort of announcement that the presidents would make themselves rather than the defense ministers. You know, whether or not it would be a game changer for the war in Ukraine, you know, I don't think we would describe it in those kind of terms. But to give Ukraine the ability to hit at depth into Russia and perhaps even intelligence as well, intelligence support to hit long-range targets would be, quite clearly, for everything that everyone is discussing here today, a huge boost to Ukraine and would help put Vladimir Putin and Russian forces under even more pressure as they go into the winter.
Alistair Bunkle there. Finally this evening I wanted to bring you pictures out of Russia where young people are turning city squares into karaoke protests. They're singing banned songs as well by popular artists that call for regime change in the country. Just take a look. This was taken in St. Petersburg with the group singing a banned song called Cooperative Swan Lake. I'm back at 10.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.